Prompt us when you are good to go.
2019, yes, Nigeria is still deciding many days after it has concluded its general elections and state elections, the gubernatorial elections that held last week. There will be reruns according to the Independent National Electoral Commission, and this is based on provisions of Section 26 and Section 53 of the Electoral Act as amended, which provides that no winner shall be declared in the margin of victory between two parties with the highest number of votes, where the highest number of votes is less than the number of cancelled votes. Now, to talk about all this, the elections that will be coming up in less than 2 days in about 5 states, we have a social affairs analyst and a public affairs commentator, Claver Oparah, joining us this morning. Welcome.
Yeah, thank you.
All right, so let's talk about the elections that will be happening. INEC has commenced the movement of sensitive materials across these states that have been affected, and where supplementary elections or reruns will happen in a couple of hours. What are your thoughts about the process and the anticipation or the build-up to the process?
There is no problem with the process. If an election was not concluded, the logical thing to do is to have a supplementary or make-up election. So if INEC, after the state gubernatorial and House of Assembly elections on the 9th of March, felt, maybe by going through the electoral law, which you have already quoted, they felt that the margin between the two leading candidates could be adjusted. That is, if a particular number of people who otherwise would have voted were allowed to vote. That is where you get inconclusive elections, because it's about a scenario where you have a constituency, let me say a state. You have 500,000 voters in the state, and 300,000 voted. But now a leading candidate had 200,000 votes, and the other candidate, the candidate following him, has 100,000 votes, with a margin of 100,000. The fact that 200,000 people did not vote calls for another process, so that the 200,000 people will vote, because they are capable of deciding or changing the electoral process. So that's how you get supplementary elections. There is nothing strange about it. I'm just surprised that some people are making fuss about the whole thing. Supplementary elections are in order, and they are provided for in the Electoral Act, so there is nothing wrong, absolutely wrong about that.
Could the force that people, or could the controversies that are being generated by people concerning the rerun of the elections come from the fact that a certain number of issues or factors marred elections, the last gubernatorial elections that we had?
Yeah, some of those certain issues are also envisaged in the Electoral Act, maybe issues that had to pertain to violence, issues that had to pertain to maybe malfunctioning of the technology for the election, and other issues, sundry issues. When you now calculate the votes of people who otherwise would have voted, but who didn't vote on a particular election, and you find out that it is significant enough to decide the election. So the logical thing is, do the listen. Let me tell you, the controversy you are talking about are just deliberate controversies, because these are well spelled out in the electoral law, and logically or naturally you can see why it is so. So many people, politicians, they enter into a game to win at all costs. They want to be declared winners by all means. They raise unnecessary controversies that should not have been there. you know.
An example of this controversy is allegations by some Nigerians that the ruling All Progressives Congress connived with INEC to declare elections inconclusive in states where the People's Democratic Party, which is the major opposition, had substantive lead over the All Progressives Congress.
That is not there. That is not true. Why it is not true is that when you look at some of those states, maybe a candidate may be leading by 3,000 votes, and you have over 100,000 votes. And you now say, see, let me tell you, PDP is just being mischievous by that allegation because they knew it used to happen. In 2015, Rochas Okorocha was leading by over 78,000 votes in Imo State. But the election was declared inconclusive, and a make-up election was held. And after that make-up election, he was declared the winner. So it is not even a new thing. But the fact that we didn't have much of it during the PDP days, they are taking us back to, is because the election then we are just, state manager affairs. We are election figures, votes we are allocated before the election day. And on the election day, you just announce, so how can you have a conclusive election under that situation? Inconclusive election speaks of the credibility of the system because it allows competitors to go to the field and for every vote to count. I don't see any reason why anybody can have, maybe you have 100,000, or sorry, you have about 3,000 vote difference. You felt that the election should be declared, irrespective of the fact that over 100,000 people have not cast their votes. It is not logical. I believe that what PDP is just doing is just scaremongering. And I think it is very deliberate because they felt that, why didn't INEC announce the result and give all the reason and leave the, was it what the Electoral Act said? That is not true, So when you look at the whole thing, the back and forth thing, it is in the way of politicians to always speak where it favors them. But then we must go back to the electoral law. What does the electoral law say on that? Where you have a sort of a situation where the margin could be affected by the number of people that didn't vote, who otherwise would have voted but didn't vote, you go for a supplementary. I don't see any reason why there should be any controversy over that.
Those people who did not vote for reasons that the INEC has come out to list as first violent. They were violent in some areas. For example, in Benue State, there was overvoting in other areas. There was hijack of electoral materials by thugs and hoodlums. And these were the factors that gave rise to the increase in the chances of the supplementary elections that we're having today. Have these issues, have you seen, or is there a deliberate move by INEC to correct these issues to ensure that they do not reoccur in Saturday's?
We shall see that during the conduct of the supplementary elections. We will not be able to say for certain that this is what's going to happen. Maybe the violence may still reoccur, and possibly it may force actions from INEC. But let us not even deviate from the issue. The point is that most of these people were prevented from voting for due to one reason or the other. Yes. It is quite different from where you have concluded voting. Possibly you have 5,000 voters and only 5 came. That one is concluded. You don't go there because everybody had the opportunity to vote, but many people did not turn out. This has to do with, due to some of these factors, people were not allowed to exercise their franchise. And INEC say, okay, let us go there. If by Saturday we now find out that these are intractable situations, violence will still continue, or some of these reasons we mentioned will continue, then it now behoves on INEC to take the best possible action. But so far, there have been no reason for us to believe that on Saturday the same thing will occur again, because these are localized elections. If it's about security, you can now direct, increase security on these given areas. If it's about, no, I don't even see some of those things occurring on Saturday.
What do you estimate that the voter turnout will be?
The voter turnout may still be in the region of the elections we just had. We may not specifically say that the voter turnout, what we even experience in most cases is that in some of these supplementary elections, voter turnouts are always low. And that was because, let me tell you, in most of these elections we have, there are some extraneous factors that we have brought in to maybe boost the votes of some candidates or some parties. In supplementary elections, one is that it is better policed. It is better managed because they are in few localized cases. So whatever is the voters' turnout may not even be material to the discussion at hand.
All right, so you talked about the presence, the possibility of a present heavy police presence in Saturday's polls. Yesterday at the Senate, there was a heated deliberation about the militarization of the process of the just concluded elections. What are your thoughts about that? So did you perceive or feel, you know, that there was...
There was nothing abnormal about it. That has been happening in every election in Nigeria. There have been no election where the military does not play significant role. Let me take you back to 2003 elections, Obasanjo's election here. You know, there was heavy deployment of security for the sake of, let's say in the Southwest, to take over the Southwest. And since then, the military plays a role in elections. See, these people are just being very mischievous.
Don't you think that when the military is present, the military is controlled by the ruling party, whose head is the commander-in-chief of the armed forces?
And which other agency is not controlled by the ruling party? Which other agency is not controlled? And INEC should be controlled by the ruling party. Police by the ruling party.
Are you
No. That they are controlled by the ruling party does not make... Let me tell you, if you watch very well, on election day, presidential election, the first election, everywhere was reporting good, free, fair. All these candidates that are complaining today, we are saying the election was very good, this and that. It's only when results started coming out that we now have, rigging. When results started coming out, in their various localities, you saw them. Even in the conduct of the military, and nobody complained until results start coming out. So these are just mischievous.
But there was an incident where one of the presidential candidates, of the African Action Congress, was voting, or after he had voted in his village, and some journalists were covering the elections with drones and all that. We saw military interference. It was streamed. It was live streamed, and we've had reports from other places, especially in the March 9 elections, like Rivers State, for example, which
let me tell you, we are coming to Rivers State. Rivers State is a syndicated process. It is a deliberate process to compromise the security.
Let's talk about the military.
Okay.
Yes.
Yeah, I'm coming.
But
Rivers
instances.
No, I'm coming in. I'm answering the military using Rivers because that was the area where you saw that this military did this, military did that. Are you getting it? And in 2015, so much killings happened in that Rivers. So much killings happened in Rivers, and now it was a case of, now I control the talks. Why are you bringing in the military to stop them? These things are very, very clear. That was in Rivers. It was in Rivers State that you even had issues of there were security breaches, except maybe one or two places you had some infractions here and there all over the country. It was in Rivers State and possibly one or two states in the South. And that should be understood. There is this deliberate strategy to undermine the process using political armed talks. And if the military had not been in Rivers, you could have imagined the kind of deaths that would have been recorded in that place, you know. And all this hoopla about the military should go, the military should go. Well, it's about release the military so that we can do what we know how to do best.
But then again, one will be tempted to ask, why is Rivers the exception, you know, to the rule? Because
that is the issue.
States such as Lagos State, we saw massive ballot box snatching that was documented and was even live in some instances.
See, let me tell you, it depends on who is reporting.
No military intervention.
It depends on who is reporting. Most often we have slanted reports going about massive ballot boxes. We are all observant during the election time. It is not as if we are this massive ballot boxes snatched in Lagos, for instance. It was only one incident in Okota. We are in a polling booth. There was violence in Lagos State on the presidential election. Where were these massive ballot boxes snatched in Lagos? Where? So most often, let me tell you, it depends on who is reporting. Some of these slanted reports on election day. And why do you think that international observers local observer, everybody rated the election as free, fair, and credible. Why was it so?
Have you considered the fact that Nigeria is a key country in the African continent and probably wants stability?
No. Let me tell you, this is not. Don't stop it there. No, which kind of stability? Before the election, we noted the kind of reaction from the international community. They were adverse. But on election day, every international observer rated the elections as free and fair and credible.
But we've also had observers from the European Union come out to claim that they were, some of the observers in the field were harassed by military officials. We've seen the BBC, for example, where a BBC journalist was slapped by thugs of a senator who was recontesting, you know. So
you see, some of these things you don't rule it out in an election. You don't rule out maybe one or two pockets of issues in elections. But overall, at the end of the day, what was the summation of European Union verdict on the election? You know, that's what we look at. So most often, some of these things are, before the election, there were massive propaganda to discredit the election, even before it's held. But to the surprise of many, and I say I stand to be corrected on that, everybody, everywhere was thumbing the election high until results started coming in. And we now started, why did people come out in this part of the day and they didn't come out in this part, and all those kind of hogwash, you know? So most, how I looked at it, because we are discussing about the military. The military cannot stay away from the conduct of elections in Nigeria. And they have never stayed away from the conduct of election because they provide security. They provide bulwarks against armed political thugs who are trained to kill and snatch results. And now when you now remove the military, you now liberalize the theater of war.
Should that be something that is done before elections to ensure that these talks, should there be a process of disarming talks, for example?
You see, when the president,
so that the military does not interfere.
When the president talked about shooting ballot box snatchers, I thought that every Nigerian, if you are now desirous of free and fair election, would have said yes, that is right, so that no ballot box snatcher will just come in. But we saw a political party, the political party that have been crying about rigging all these years, now come out and say, why are you shooting ballot box snatchers? But
there's a provision in the constitution for snatching of ballot box, and it recommends 24 months imprisonment for anyone who snatches a ballot box.
Good.
Why will the commander-in-chief of the armed forces, who is encouraging people to be lawful in their conduct, contravene the law of, you know, the federal...
How many people have been sentenced to 24 months imprisonment before? How many people? See, let me tell you, all those things are about deterrent. Why will you go and snipe ballot box and wait for 24 months imprisonment? We are talking of building a Nigeria.
Take the laws into their own
hands. It's not about taking the laws into the hand. He now, what he said was that anybody trying to snipe ballot box should be, or what we said, should ensure that this is his last act, which we now interpreted as shoot at this. That is a deterrent. Go and stay at home. Why will you set out on your house to snap ballot boxes and now argue about the legality or otherwise of it? Ballot box, is it now illegal or this and that? We should encourage people to now go and snap ballot box so that we can argue about the legality after that. You know? So why I brought it is that why can't Nigerians you know, try and be civilized about conduct of elections in Nigeria? Why must we be running around people?
If you're encouraging civility in the conduct of elections, you just you know, supported the president for saying that he should shoot, the military should shoot ballot box snatchers. But you're encouraging civility. Is that a civil conduct?
See, let me tell you, it is about bringing a civil conduct.
But the law is there to deter.
Which law? And I asked you, how many people have this law convicted? What are you telling me? Which law? It's an obsolete law. It doesn't work. It doesn't work. The character of the country we have is that a severe effort must be done to stop these things. You know? And we cannot do it by, the law is there. They know that the law is there. At the end of the day, law convicts nobody. We have to put practical, and what is it about? Don't snatch ballot box. Nobody should make any argument for those who snap ballot boxes. Nobody should make argument for that.
Do you believe that the president, Muhammadu Buhari, believes in the rule of law?
Why not?
And is subject to it?
Why not?
Do you think that his actions have been reflective of the rule of law?
Of course.
Do you think that the comments that he made about ballot boxes being snatched is subject to the rule of law, considering that we have a constitution?
Good. We have a constitution, and listen, that rule of law, I mean, the ballot box issue you talked about, as I said, you will always approach it as I have asked you, how many people have been convicted? We are talking of obsolete law that cannot do anything. That will continue to deepen our issues. And as the president and commander-in-chief, he has the capacity to issue directives to soldiers. And he said, see, if anybody is snatching ballot box, let it be his last act. And I would have expected that all Nigerians would have said yes, so that we will not have issues of ballot box snatching. But here we are. It's rule of law, rule of law, rule of. Let us say, when they shoot them, they go to law court. We will now find out whether the president has no power to issue such directive.
All right, so let's move on to Rivers State, because it's an interesting thing that is playing out between the People's Democratic Party and the African Action Congress in that state. We've seen also statements from the Minister of Transportation, Rotimi Amici. We've seen court injunctions, and we've seen INEC also, you know, going to court. But the results were supposed to be announced yesterday, by the way, before another court injunction came in. What are your thoughts about Rivers State?
You see, the issue of Rivers State is at the soul of this discussion we are having about whether military should participate, you know, in the electoral process or not. Because we have seen a situation where no election have held in Rivers State, and I stand to be corrected by that. No election have held in Rivers State over the years. I remember in those days, I think, was it 2011 or 2007 elections, where elections were held maybe before the close of the day, 2-point-something million votes have been announced. And the following day or the following week, Guardian brought out pictures of the polling units. Nobody was at the polling units, you know, on the election day and all those kind of things. That has been repeating in Rivers State over and over again. And as I said, on the day of the presidential election, Rivers was just a case where we are having a violence here, violence there. You know, definitely, as I said, there is no how you can have elections without pockets of violence or pockets of issues here and there. But Rivers was exceptional. Why was it so? Because we have not, there is an entrenched order that is working against holding an election in Rivers State. And this entrenched order uses, you know, believes in that maxim, that Niccolo Machiavelli maxim of the end justifies the means. Do whatever you can do, let them announce you as the winner, and you go there. We saw it happen in 2015. And the process was heading for reversal until it reached the Supreme Court. And in a controversial manner, the Supreme Court now reversed the earlier judgments of the appeal tribunal, you know, that had voided the so-called election, which was just a farcical issue. Now, in Rivers this year, we now saw a deliberate effort to now use armed talks to undermine the system so as to benefit a particular candidate who may be unpopular. Because if you are popular, you don't need to.
That he is unpopular.
No, what I mean is that if you are popular, you don't need to use underhand practices to win election. You go to the poll like any other citizen and vote the votes, and after the votes, you take your votes. But possibly you either win or you lose. But this was a case of the process had not been allowed to hold seamlessly, you know, due to use of armed guerrillas and armed militia. So that's now repeated itself this year, but for the presence of the military. And I bet you, if not the military presence in Rivers, it would have been more bloody, as you know, because there has been that entrenched system of people trying to perpetuate themselves in power using illegal means, you know, and political talks. Give them everything and let them swarm the polling booths on election day, and you'll be announced winner.
But in Rivers State, what we're saying is allegations by INEC that the military interfered in the elections, and not necessarily, as you're implying, you know, they were not there to protect the process.
You see, that has been this, and the military. What was the response of the military? You wouldn't take the allegation of INEC in that is without counterbalancing it with what the military replied. You see, let me tell you, most of the people in these services may either be compromised or not. I hadn't expected that that resident electoral commissioner who supervised the 2015 election would still be in Rivers today. But he's still the resident electoral commissioner. That shows you that there is a lot of issues, even in the electoral body. So the Rivers State and said that the military intervened in this, and the military made a response. You know, showing clearly and evidently, even where its officers were shot by armed thugs in Obiakpo local government, you know, to show that what they played
but
was...
don't you think the military, which the you know, the African Action Congress is accusing of interfering in the elections? The Obiakpo is the stronghold of the current governor of Rivers State, Governor Nyesom Wike. There's been allegations and counter allegations. Do you think it will be fair to concentrate on, you know, the military's response to Obiakpo alone and not?
No, I'm just giving you a glimpse of what the military replied to the so-called INEC indictment. I'm just giving you...
But we have places like Ikwere too, where, you know, civilians who went out to vote were attacked, allegedly attacked. We have videos.
By the military.
By the military.
Do you know, some of these issues, we cannot just be going back and forth. But what I want to let you know is that when you compare the casualty figures in Rivers in 2015 and the casualty figure this year, you know that we are making some progress. And let me tell you, if we remove the military from Rivers, we are just talking. You know that at a time, Rivers became known as Rivers of Blood. You know, so the bottom line is this. Allegations will be going back and forth or whatever, but we are talking of substantive issues that has to do. Rivers have not allowed, or in Rivers, election had not been allowed to hold for years now. And possibly that informed the deployment of the military in Rivers in particular, and in many other this. But we have not. Why is it that we are not getting complaints from the, you know, from other areas? It's in Rivers that the complaint is concentrated about the role of the military, because the military prevented these illegal armed gangs from doing what they were used to doing. And you can see that kind of this thing. And the INEC we are talking about is being accused of being heavily compromised in Rivers State. You didn't even raise that allegation. It's everywhere that INEC was heavily. Why did they arrest that election process? Why did they arrest it? It has happened before. There was a by-election in Port Harcourt, you know, and they just arrested it. We didn't even know how it was concluded. And that's what I'm trying to tell you. You see, why can't we try to, because we are often quoting, EU said this, Britain said this and that. Why can't we try to mimic what happens over there? Where election is just a seamless process. You walk to a polling unit, you cast your vote, you either go or come.
Why do you think Nigeria hasn't gotten there yet?
Yeah, well, we have to. We cannot be making that excuse every time we have not gotten there and time continues to go. We have to make efforts to try to get there. And how do we get there? As we have said, nobody, Nigeria, deliberately flout constituted authority. You are talking about the constitution. Let me just digress a bit. No, I want to digress a bit. I want to digress a bit. In Imo State, for instance, I heard that the candidate that was declared winner didn't meet the constitutional requirement of 25% in 2/3 of the states. How can a Sen officer of the electoral body declare such a candidate winner when this is explicitly stated in the constitution? So when you have situations where people are deliberately flouting the rules to take advantage and get themselves into power, we have to take, like you said, if it is about snatching ballots, everybody believes in snatching ballots to win election, and at the end of the day, the electoral law says that you should sentence such a person to 24 months, and no person has been sentenced. We have to depart from that and enforce a more stricter law that will make ballot boxing, because it's a criminal offense, let it, go from our electoral system.
All right, so I have two last questions, and the first is, what is the interest in Rivers State? Why is Rivers State always controversial, as you've...
I may not answer that, but what I know, what I can, from my own limited understanding of what happens in Rivers, is that Rivers is seen by PDP as the last bastion of PDP. One is that they consider that the state gets a lot of money from this and that's the federation account, being an oil producing this and those things, and they don't envisage losing the state. Let us remember that in the process, that's the process leading to the 2015 election, because I'll go back there, when Amechi was the governor, the direct interference of the presidency in the affairs of Rivers State, so leading to the election, when they now brought out a wiki, and in the election proper, no election took place. They just killed a lot of people and wrote results, and it was announced. And now in this election, as you said, Rivers is a state in Nigeria. It has to be contested freely by all the parties interested. But there is a deliberate attempt by the PDP to keep it as the last garrison where nobody has a right to contest. That is why it has been generating these kind of issues. Possibly if they were in power, they would have used the military. Maybe the military would have worked with armed thugs and hoodlums, and nobody would have complained. Like, as I say, in 2015, all the people killed in 2015, where are they now? Who did anything about them? And it continues. So that is why Rivers politics have been combustible. They see it as it's a matter of life and death. We will not lose this state by free or fair means. By foul or fair means, we must keep this state.
All right. So the last question is sort of a two-in-one package.
Okay.
What are your expectations for Saturday and after Saturday when the results will be announced? And do you think that all these problems will be solved by the simple solution of e-voting?
The expectation I have for Saturday is a process, as I say, it's a make-up process, in few isolated places. I just expect that the process will go on seamlessly and conclude the process. Whoever wins is immaterial. Let's have a process that is seamless. But as I said, and I keep saying, these are in few isolated places. I don't envisage much problem, unlike a widespread election. So whatever it is, I expect a seamless process, and I believe it will conclude that process so that we move to the level of adjudications in the courts. About e-voting, I'm still very skeptical. Why am I skeptical? Nigeria still lacks the the facilities to go into electronic voting.
You don't think 4 years is enough time to introduce those types of...
We are talking of a lot of
technology
issues. We are talking of, this is not about using equipment to this. We are talking of a system where the power sector is still tentative. Some of these technology depend on power. We are also talking about a system where people deliberately manipulate. What happened in America, even with this advanced dissent in the last election, we will have to be very reticent in recommending e-voting for Nigeria, because these are systems that are easily manipulable.
All right.
People can hack, and the other reason I was having an article making laughable this and that INEC server declared him winner. And you just begin to wonder, our election result, not what takes place at the polling units.
All right, we'll see what happens at the tribunal, but this is the size of our package this morning. Thank you so much, Mr. Peter Oparah. He is a public affairs analyst and social commentator. Thank you for speaking with us on Sahara TV this morning.
Thank you.
Don't forget that you can watch all our content on YouTube at Sahara TV. Don't forget to also follow us on Facebook. We're at Sahara Reporters, and on Instagram at Sahara Reporters. Visit our website at www.saharareporters.com for all the latest information on the supplementary elections and information about Nigeria, Africa, and the world. Until next time, I'll see you then.
Okay. That's it.